Okay, there's great news. You got the job offer, but there are no benefits. Or maybe there are benefits, but they aren't that great. So this means you want to negotiate, and you want to negotiate the best possible benefits package you can. Now, if you are asking, can I negotiate my benefits package? The answer in almost all cases is yes. And here's the thing. If you do not ask, then you have no chance of success. So today, I'm going to offer 4 tips for negotiating benefits package once you receive a job offer. So tip number 1 is to make a list of the kinds of benefits that might matter to you and that might be negotiable. So let's just list what some of these are. Some are really obvious and maybe some are more hidden. First is vacation time. Second might be sick leave, or more and more firms right now are allowing mental health days and are distinguishing that from sick days. Next might be the health care plan. Another might be retirement benefits, 401k contributions, and also when those contributions vest. In the post-COVID world, there are also lots of negotiations that can happen around flexible work schedules or work from home. Another area of negotiation can be around job titles. A domain that people often forget but is often very negotiable is a professional development plan or an accelerated promotion plan that has some early benchmarks and then opportunities for raises and new titles. Another area of negotiation might be getting some commitments about individuals in the firm who can mentor you, or people under whom you'll work, or the kind of projects you might get, or the work you'll do. Then lastly is kind of a catch-all area, what I might call random perks, but meaningful ones, like will you have your own office, or will there be a window in the office, or can you get a new computer, or will you get a cell phone, or will they pay for business cards or a parking spot? So you want to make a list of all of these, and the more you can think about, right? You might not bring all of these up, it might be overwhelming to the other side, but it may also be the case that some of these asks are really pretty easy yeses, and some of the asks might be doable because there's no company policy on them. Years ago, when I was at Harvard Law School, I was a lecturer, and then at some point I got promoted to clinical professor. And one of the things I had noticed through my years at Harvard was that lecturers had differently sized offices than professors. And so one of the things that I wanted to negotiate was a bigger office. And in principle, in this negotiation, I learned that the then dean of the law school was not opposed to giving me a bigger office. However, she said there was no space, right? The school just didn't have such a bigger office. But I confirmed with her that if in theory there were a bigger office, that she'd be willing to give it to me. And she said, absolutely. What I was able to do is identify 2 smaller offices that were occupied by people who rarely actually came into the law school. And these offices were adjacent to each other. And so I then spoke to these 2 people and said, would it be particularly troublesome to share an office since you don't come in very often? And they're like, no, like we barely come in here. We kind of just put our books here. And so using that information, I then went back to the dean and I said, I actually did identify these 2 spaces that are contiguous that if we knock the wall down would make one regular professor size office. Oh, and by the way, the 2 people who occupy these 2 offices hardly ever use them. They'd be happy to share an office and they could share my current small office. And that ended up being a successful way for me to get a bigger office. And so the point here is that if you think creatively and really make a list of the benefits that you might want, you might be able to craft something that's quite yesable. Now, the second step here, right, is once you've made this list, you want to research what others, both in your company and also in your industry, typically get. In other words, perhaps there are best practices or criteria that you could use in arguing for a benefits package or for a bonus scheme or for some schedule of promotion. often when I hear that, oh no, we can't do that, or we can't do that, or that's against company policy, right? If it's against company policy, that may be a bluff, but if it's true, it might be quite hard to negotiate around that. But if that's the only reason that is given to me as to why the answer is no, what I typically will say something like, listen, I don't want you to, go beyond company policy, and I know you can't, but let me ask you this. If the company policy ever changes, would you be willing to guarantee to me that then I can get this benefit? And I've done this on a number of occasions and gotten the answer yes. And then I codify it. I either ask to see it in an email or put it in writing. And I monitor if anyone ever gets that benefit or the company policy changes. I go back and I ask for the deal to be given to me as well. Third, before I go into this negotiation, I need to think about, I have this whole list of asks and interests. What are the things that are most important to me and what might be tradable, right? I'm not going to go in and expect to get all of this, but I want to at least prioritize. Then fourth, when I am making the actual asks, I want to always frame them around norms of fairness and standards of legitimacy and criteria. What I don't want to do is go in and be demanding or act as if I'm some kind of prima donna. Because what I don't want to do is end up getting a bunch of yeses, but have people really resent me. And I have seen situations, and I think this occurs not infrequently in certain situations, where somebody who is highly valued makes a whole bunch of asks, and they get those asks, and they arrive at their new employer, and everybody resents them. Where the more I can actually frame my requests around criteria and fairness, the more it seems that I'm not asking for something out of the ordinary. I just want to be treated fairly and appropriately. And this leads to the fifth piece of advice, which is that when you are making the asks, you want to project confidence. You want to give the sense that this is something that's appropriate to ask for, it's grounded in reasoning, it's something that you feel confident you're worthy of. I want to distinguish this from feeling cocky or demanding or demeaning, right? Those approaches will backfire. So, when it comes to negotiating benefits, 5 pieces of advice. First, make a list of the kinds of benefits that might matter to you, and there's a whole host of them. Second, research what others in your company or industry get. Third, prioritize what's most important to you and what's tradable. Fourth, frame all your requests around criteria and fairness. And lastly, when you're in the negotiation, project confidence, but not cockiness or being demanding. If you've enjoyed this video, please watch the next one, which is how to negotiate a higher salary after a job offer. And before you leave here, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and ring the bell so you never miss new content. Okay, keep watching. Click, click, click.